This is the story of how two brothers died in the same house, in the same week. One was killed by a trap he built himself. The other waited 12 days in the dark for dinner that was never going to come. My name's Joe, and this is one Buried Earth video that is definitely worth your time. Okay, so here's the setup. March 21st, 1947, in New York City. The police get an anonymous tip that there is a dead body inside a Harlem mansion on 5th Avenue. They drive over and they try the front door, but they can't get in. The door is jammed solid with debris piled behind it, floor to ceiling. So they bring a ladder and they climb up a second floor window and force their way through. Inside, the smell is unbearable. The patrolman that climbs in first finds something he was not expecting. A skeletal old man, sitting in a tattered bathrobe, dead in a tiny clearing, surrounded by stacks of newspapers and household debris reaching the ceiling. His name is Homer Collyer. The police look around and they start asking questions, because Homer did not live alone. He had a brother that was supposed to be taking care of him. So where is his brother, Langley? That question, where's Langley, is going to consume New York City for the next 18 days. There will be sightings across 9 states, newspapers running daily updates, crowds gathering outside of their house. But here's the part of the story that I think gets missed sometimes. These were not homeless men. They weren't vagrants. Homer and Langley Collyer were millionaires, both Columbia educated, from one of the oldest families in New York. Their mother used to read them Greek classics aloud at the dinner table. So how does something like this happen? How do two of the most privileged men in America end up dying in 140 tons of their own garbage? Their father was a Manhattan gynecologist, Dr. Herman Livingston Collyer. He worked at Bellevue Hospital and built up a successful private practice. The Smithsonian still has a medical instrument that he invented in 1894 in their archives. So we're talking about a serious professional, respected, wealthy, and connected. Their mum was Susie Gage Frost Collyer, a former opera singer. She read Greek classics to her boys at the dinner table, the kind of mother that would correct your pronunciation of Aristotle while you were eating your soup. Apparently, both parents were first cousins, both descended from the Livingston family, one of New York's founding patroon families. This is going back to colonial times. This is old money and an old name. And they had 2 sons, Homer, born 1881, and Langley, born 1885, just 4 years apart. Homer, the oldest, was more academic. Langley, the younger, was more artistic. Both boys went to Columbia. Homer earned multiple degrees and became a property lawyer in Manhattan. He had a real career going. Langley studied music and engineering. He was a trained pianist, good enough to publicly perform when he was younger. He even played at Carnegie Hall once, by some accounts. Now in 1909, Harlem, New York City was not what it would become later on. It was a fashionable upper middle class neighbourhood. Mostly white people lived there, mostly Jewish, lots of professional families. The Collyers fit right in. But over the next 20 years, Harlem transformed. By 1925, it had become a symbolic capital of Black America. The white residents who lived there for generations mostly left. The Collyers stayed, but they didn't engage with the neighbourhood that had grown up around them. They just stopped opening the door. Their dad Herman dies in 1923. Their mum Susie dies in 1929. The brothers inherit the brownstone, all of the family belongings, and a substantial estate. And here's the part that surprises most people about this story. By the time they died in 1947, the brothers' estate was worth nearly $91,000. In today's money, roughly 1.3 million. So they were basically millionaires, sitting inside a house full of garbage, refusing to let anybody in. And I just want to pause on this for just a second, because these people weren't poor. They weren't people that didn't know any better. They were two of the most educated, most privileged men in the entire city, and they were about to spend the next 20 years building one of the most disturbing houses in American history. The more research I do on this, by the way, guys, the more insane this story becomes. So, after their parents died, the brothers just cut themselves off in stages. Gas and electricity got shut off in 1928. They didn't pay their bills. They just didn't ask to have it reconnected. They just adapted, I guess. By the 1930s, they were heating their water with kerosene stoves and reading by oil lamp in a Manhattan brownstone, 2 streets from one of the busiest avenues in all of America. Then, in 1933, Homer started losing his sight. By the end of the year, he was completely blind. The cause is debated. Could have been a retinal hemorrhage, could have been a stroke. Nobody really knows. But what we do know is that Langley refused to take Homer to the doctor. He insisted he could cure his brother himself, which is just insane, by the way. But he was using their late father's library of medical books, about 15,000 volumes of them. Langley really believed that he had everything he needed to cure his brother, and he came up with a treatment plan. Wait for this, guys. Rest, and 100 oranges per week, plus black bread and peanut butter. He believed the diet would restore Homer's sight. Spoiler alert, it didn't. By 1939, Homer wasn't just blind, he was now paralysed. He couldn't walk, he couldn't really move. Trapped in his own body in a brownstone with no running water, dependent entirely on his brother to feed him, clean him, and to read to him. And if you thought things were already strange, this is where it gets even stranger. Through the 1930s, Langley started bringing things home. Not garbage at first, newspapers, books, musical instruments, furniture that people had thrown out to the curb. It was whatever he could carry home. His logic was specific. He was saving newspapers so Homer could read them when his sight came back. I want you to sit with that for just a second, because it's one of the most haunting things in this whole story. Homer's sight was never coming back. The medical science of the 1930s wasn't going to fix what has happened to him. Langley was building a library of newspapers for one person that was never going to see again. Day after day, year after year, he was adding to the piles. He would come home with armfuls. He'd stack them. He'd organise them by date. He genuinely believed Homer would read them one day. The hoard grew and grew and grew. By the early 1940s, the house was unlivable by any normal standard. Floors warped under the weight. Doors wouldn't close anymore. Entire rooms were now blocked off. But the brothers had adapted. Langley had carved tunnels through the debris, narrow corridors, some of them just 2 feet wide, and he memorized the entire route. He barricaded every entrance and rigged sections of the debris so that anyone forcing their way in, it would bring tons of compacted rubbish down on them. The mansion had become something else entirely. A fortress, a trap, and a maze. Langley only left the house at night, after midnight. He would walk miles through Harlem. Sometimes he would go all the way down to Williamsburg in Brooklyn just to find a certain loaf of bread. Like a 6-mile walk each way, at night, completely alone, carrying scraps all the way back. He scavenged from butchers and grocers. They'd often leave food out for him after closing. Some of them knew him, some of them felt sorry for him. None of them really knew his story though. The patrolman working the midnight to 8 shift remembered him. They said they'd seen him on their rounds and said he was shabby but cultured. He would stop for a chat sometimes. He spoke well, he was articulate. He'd talk about music, about books, and then he would just disappear back into the dark. Just think about that for a second, just the stature of this family and how educated this guy was. A man whose mother had even read Greek to him as a boy was walking the streets of Manhattan at 3 in the morning alone, carrying scraps of food back to a blind, paralysed man trapped inside his house, where he created a crazy tunnel system. This was just nuts. And this was their life for over a decade, and it was normal to them now. By the time we're talking about, the brothers have been doing this for so long that it didn't feel strange to them anymore. But the biggest question of it all was what was inside of that house. So I actually want to walk you through what was actually in that house, because the inventory tells you something that you need to know about the brothers and just how their mind worked. There was 14 pianos, including a Steinway square piano. There was 3 organs, around 25,000 books, medical texts, law books, engineering manuals, Greek classics, a gold leaf King James Bible, bundles of newspapers stacked floor to ceiling, some dating back to the 1880s. There was a Ford engine. Yeah, like the car, a Ford. The brothers had particularly dismantled an old Model T and brought parts of it inside of the house. The wheels and the chassis came out during the first cleanup. We've actually got photos of it. Then the 4-cylinder engine, 34 bank books, the earliest account dating to 1894, the most recent withdrawal in 1942. Total deposits, $3,007, worth about $43,000 today. There was also an arsenal, 3 revolvers, 2 rifles, a shotgun, a saber, a French bayonet. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, this list of objects in the house is just so absurd. It stops being shocking at a certain point and it starts being comedic. Like, there would be TV shows about these guys if this was in modern day. But I think it's worth pausing on because every single one of these items had to be carried into the house by Langley at night when he was supposed to be caring for his blind, paralysed brother. But why did they need something like 14 pianos? Why did they keep a car engine? Why did they save a 1908 phone book? Honestly, I don't think they knew either. So inside the house, Langley had built corridors through the debris, the only way to navigate. Some of the tunnels were 2 feet wide, just barely enough for a grown man to crawl through them. The walls were bundles of newspapers packed tight, old furniture, bed springs, suitcases. In some of the photos, you could probably see some planks of wood, probably just to give it some support. And he booby-trapped sections of all of this. Now, this isn't a Hollywood version of this story, the version where tripwires and triggers and clever mechanisms. The real version was just really simple, and in some ways, a little bit crueler. He would stack the debris so that disturbing it would cause it just to collapse. A junk fall. Basically, anyone trying to force their way through, it would just bring tons of compacted rubbish down on them. This was what he had built to keep intruders out. And inside, a blind, paralysed Homer was depending on Langley to navigate the system, to bring him food, to bring him water, maybe newspapers that he would never read. But by the mid-1940s, Langley was now sleeping inside his tunnels. He was eating inside his tunnels, living in a maze of his own creation. The home was not a home anymore. It hadn't been for years. It was a weapon Langley had spent 2 decades building, and it was about to do exactly what he had designed it to do, except to the wrong person. The forensic estimates placed Langley's death somewhere around March 9th, 1947. We don't know exactly what happened, but it's pretty easy to reconstruct the likely sequence because this guy was insane and did the same thing every single day. So he goes out at night, just like every night, and he scavenges for food. He then walks home before dawn. He enters one of his tunnels, probably one that's going to lead to the room where Homer is. He's probably carrying some bread and maybe an orange or 2, because that diet was absolutely insane and you gotta stick to it. Something gives way though. We don't know what. We don't know if he triggered it himself by brushing against the loaded section, or if it was just part of his tunnel collapsing under the sheer weight of everything. The autopsy cannot tell us this. What we do know though, is 4 feet of compacted rubbish came down on top of him and he suffocated. And I keep thinking about that moment when he's in a hurry trying to get back to his brother. He's in a tunnel that he built himself. He knows every inch of it. He's navigated it thousands of times. He's got food in his hand for his brother, and then in 1 second, the thing that he's built to protect them both kills him. 10 feet away, through the wall of debris, Homer is just sitting there in a bathrobe. He doesn't know Langley is dead. He thinks dinner is coming, just like every other night. Just like every night for the last 18 years. Now, this is the part of the story where it just gets a little bit sadder. So, day 1, Homer is waiting. Langley is sometimes a little bit late, but this might not be unusual. Maybe he found something interesting on his walk. Maybe he stopped to talk to a patrolman. Maybe he just had a detour somewhere. But then, day 2 happens. Homer's getting hungry now, probably calling out, but the house is sealed, it's basically soundproof with all that newspaper. Nobody can hear him. Nobody knows. The brothers are still inside of the house. Day 3 happens. The medical pathology tells us something. Homer's autopsy showed no food in his digestive tract. Severe dehydration. He probably went 3 days without water before he died. He had a gangrenous bed sore. He hadn't been moved in a while. Obviously, he couldn't move himself. He was paralyzed. He was blind. He couldn't see what was happening around him. He had no idea what just happened. He couldn't tell the day from night. He couldn't tell whether anybody had come into his room or not. He was probably calling out Langley's name into the dark for days. Now, I want to be careful here. I don't want to dwell on something for shock value because of his suffering or whatnot, but I do want you to understand something. The autopsy estimates Homer survived for around 12 days after Langley died. 12 days alone in the dark, calling for someone who was never going to answer, trying to ration whatever water he had or didn't have. Probably trying to understand somewhere in that house, something had gone wrong, that his brother was not coming. The horror of this story isn't really the trap, it's the silence. It's the days where one man is waiting in the dark for footsteps that he didn't know would never come. He died on or around March 21st, 1947. That is the same day the police got the anonymous tip. They were minutes late. So going back to March 21st, the police arrive at 2078 Fifth Avenue. They can't get through the door, it's blocked solid. So they climb in through a second floor window. Inside, the smell would have been overwhelming. The patrolman who first reached Homer would later describe him as bird-like, skeletal, sitting in a bathrobe in a small clearing, surrounded by stacks of newspapers and household debris that reached the ceiling. Homer is dead. Hours, not days, so fresh that patrolmen initially thought that he might be still alive. But his brother Langley was missing. And the big question here is, where is Langley? The police search the house. They can't get through most of the rooms, it's too packed. They search what they can, but there was no sign. The next morning, March 22nd, a story breaks on the front page of the New York Times. Homer Collyer is dead. Langley is missing. The whole city is hooked. Some of these pictures are just crazy, by the way, just the sheer volume of people outside of this building. This was big news. The sightings come in immediately though. People who think that they have spotted Langley everywhere. Langley spotted in Atlantic City. Langley on a bus in Philadelphia. Langley in New Jersey. Langley in 9 different states. None of them turned out to be him. Meanwhile, a public administrator named Robert Roberts began a formal cleanup of the house. Also, Robert Roberts, your last name's Roberts, and you called your kid Robert. Anyway, 5 movers working 8-hour days in the house, $120 in fees per day, the estate paying for the entire operation. Day by day, the house gives up its contents: bank books, pistols, pianos, the Ford engine, boxes of paperwork dating back to the 1880s, workers carrying furniture out into the street where photographers were waiting. We've got so many photos of this, by the way. Crowds were gathering outside. Curious New Yorkers, reporters, photographers. The newspapers print fresh photos every single day. By the end of the search, about 2,000 people had come to watch over the course of the cleanup, the press started calling it the Collyer Museum. But still no Langley. 18 days pass. Then on April 8th, a worker working in the hallway on the second floor finds something. They pull back the layer of debris and they find the body of a man. And yes, it's Langley. He's 10 feet from where Homer was found, just 10 feet away. He's in a tunnel that's about 2 feet wide, buried under 4 foot of rubbish. This was old newspapers, a suitcase, metal bread boxes, parts of a chest of drawers. His remains have been gnawed by rats. The medical examiner estimates that he died around March 9th. That's 12 days before Homer died. 12 days and just 10 feet apart. And if we just focus on that for just a second, Homer died on the 21st, Langley died on the 9th. The whole time the police were searching 9 states for Langley, he was already in the house, inside one of his own tunnels, buried in his own trap. Homer was alive for those 12 days, blind and paralysed, calling for his brother. 10 feet through a wall of garbage from where his brother was lying dead under a corridor of rubbish, Langley had spent 20 years building to protect them both. The trap had killed both brothers, one in seconds, one over 12 days. 140 tons of debris removed from the house, 14 pianos, 3 organs, 25,000 books, a Ford engine, $1.3 million in today's money just sitting in the estate where 2 millionaire brothers slowly killed themselves with isolation. The cleanup ends at the end of June. The contents goes to auction. A piano sells for $45. The other 15 items put up for sale, but no buyers. A second-hand dealer named Carlos Martin buys the entire remaining contents of the house for $100. So all of those decades of obsessive collecting all sold for the price of a second-hand dealer clearing out a backlot. The mansion itself was condemned in July 1947 and demolished. The lot sits empty for decades. Today, there is a small public space on the corner, Collyer Brothers Park. No statue though, no plaque telling you what happened. Most New Yorkers just walk past it without knowing. And I keep coming back to that moment in the dark. Homer in his bathrobe, blind, paralysed, sitting in a clearing surrounded by garbage, calling for Langley 1 day, 2 days, 7 days, 12 days. It was 12 days of silence in a house that his brother had spent 2 decades turning into a fortress to keep them both safe. Langley loved him. That's the thing that nobody really says about this story. Whatever made him hoard, whatever made him build that maze, he was doing it for Homer. He was bringing him oranges every single night. He was reading to him, and he genuinely believed that he could cure his brother's blindness if he just kept caring for him hard enough. In the end, the thing that he built to protect them both killed them both. Now, I would love to also add here, the photos I have of Homer on screen, I have a feeling are not actually him. Every single video, every single documentary or article of the brothers show this on screen as Langley and this one as Homer. But the more research I do, the more I think these are all images of Langley, just from different years. Mainly from the newspapers in the 1940s and the article in the Life magazine of April 1947. They show both Langley on a fence in 1942 and then Langley again in 1946. There is also this image here of Langley from 1942 looking out of his window. So I really believe, from all of the real images that we have access to, there is not a single real image of Homer. Do let me know in the comments of this video if I am wrong, or if you have any thoughts, but some of this just doesn't add up to me. And that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Joe, and this Buried Earth video was so much fun to make. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next video. And on screen right now, 2 videos I think you're gonna absolutely love.